The whole world's falling apart, and what are we gonna do about it? That's the topic of today's podcast. Thanks for taking the time to join me here in the studio alone. But this is something I've been tuning into lately. It's really easy to get wrapped up in everything that's going on because the world's in this like very transitory state right now. We got the war in Ukraine, the war in Israel Palestine happening over there. We got the Democrats trying to create more censorship. We got Donald Trump, the only presidential candidate to be impeached multiple times and to be sued and charged with all these crazy criminal actions. And we got the World Economic Forum trying to make us get rid of everything, sell everything, and we'll be happier. We have AI getting more and more powerful every single day. And a lot of times when I talk to parents, because I'm a young parent, or I'm not a young parent, I'm a parent of young kids, I should say. I'm an old parent. But they're fearful of bringing more kids into the world or bringing just a kid into the world. And so I thought that I would make a podcast to talk about like what I'm doing essentially as like a spiritual student, when I see all of this chaos around me. And it's like so easy to get wrapped up in it, and it's so easy to get scared and to run and to freeze. It's fight, flight, or freeze. That's the one thing that happens to us when we get into fear. We just stop doing whatever that may be. Stop chasing our dreams. Stop trying to expand and grow because the fear of what might happen has frozen us. And so, for me, with every single one of these situations, what I'm basically just doing is just surrendering to the higher power of my understanding. And to me, it's like the energy of God. It's not so much as a person in the sky, but the energy that interconnects all of us, the energy of the universe, whatever you want to call it. And just it's like a higher state of consciousness that is surrounded by the energy of love. And that energy is so powerful. If you ever tune into that state of consciousness of love, you can't even open your mouth because you'll open your mouth and you'll just cry because you're like just feel so grateful and happy to be alive. And so that is the power that runs the universe. And ultimately, I believe that power will always win. And when you have that belief, then you can just look at every single one of these situations and just be like, okay, I'm just going to keep moving forward and doing what I do. So the way that you can help humanity, and I do believe that we are on like a precipice. I don't know if that's the word, precipice. I don't know. Anyways, I do believe we're on this like turning point here, this access point where we are going to evolve as a species, and we are either going to evolve through other people moving up the scale of consciousness to coming into more and more awareness. And you're seeing this. It's like, if anything that COVID did, it woke people up to the realization of how programmed we have been. And once you start seeing the programs that you've bought into, they just start coming at you like crazy. And this happened to me when I went vegetarian. Like I've been vegetarian for I don't know, a long time, since 2005. And back then, when I went veg, no one else was veg. Like I was the only vegetarian person. You couldn't find even vegetarian items on, at fast food places or in grocery stores. And now it's kind of everywhere, and it's actually become part of like this woke movement that you're going to eat crickets and all these things, right? And so I'm not here to preach about vegetarianism. I don't want to push any diet on anybody. Everyone can choose what they want to do. But ultimately, the thing for me when I went veg was this wake-up call that I had just bought into these like 5 basic food groups, and I viewed that as what was healthy. But all of that was just a program to sell more, meat, dairy, fish, cheese, essentially poultry. And so once you step out of that, you're like, oh my God, like I can't believe that I have been so unconscious to this. And I think that's what COVID did with respect to mainstream media, and even the recognition that there's the right-wing media and a left-wing media, and people are just waking up. And love him or hate him, Donald Trump was the great awakener. And I'm really making up words today. But anyways, he was the guy that like basically started this thing like fake news, and he basically like woke up the population to the fact that the news was one-sided. And that was like, I think we kind of always had a feeling, but it was like finally in the light of like this mainstream media. And so now no one trusts the media. And so now if you don't trust the media, then you start tuning into other things. And then you start recognizing how pharmaceutical companies all got rich over COVID, and all of these politicians are getting rich because of policies that they're making, and they're buying stocks. And it's like, oh my God, our eyes are opening. And this is what I'm talking about, this great awakening that's going to happen. And so I believe that as more people come into awareness of all of the programs that they've been buying into, they are going to start looking at what actually matters, right? And what actually matters is to be a good person, to live a life of integrity, to be compassionate towards all. And so if you really want to get into like how to live like a life of just internal happiness, you could just look at the 10 commandments. And this isn't like a religious thing, but it's like if you just go through every 10 commandment and you lived your life that way, it's like this world would be an amazing place to be. But because we have put programs that we have unconsciously taken on above these universal laws of existence, we have evil in the world, right? And so climate change, all of that stuff, it's all people thinking that they know what is best for us, and then indoctrinating systems and programs and propaganda so that we buy into it. And if we're completely asleep and we're completely unconscious to it, then we will continue to allow ourselves to be programmed. And what I think is happening is people are becoming unprogrammed. And maybe you go unprogrammed and you lean more right. Maybe you go unprogrammed and lean more left. But regardless, it doesn't really matter as long as you are getting unprogrammed. I think that's the most important part. I still think people are going to have their own opinions. But as we move to this place of unprogramming, we are also going to align with the state of love and compassion. And the more that we do that, the less division we will begin to have. And then once we align together, it will be like that power of connection that will overthrow all of the evil in the world. So that's what I believe. And so that's why when all of this shit's going on and all these terrible things are happening in the world, and I tune into the parents' fear of like what their kids are going to do. Just like, I just trust that everything's going to be okay. And, that's essentially what surrender is. Surrender is a complete and total trust that no matter what happens, even if you die, you will be fine. I know that seems crazy, but when you really truly believe in a higher power of your understanding, you recognize that we are eternal, right? And death is only in the physical world. We will go on from here. And so even if our kids have to live through the Great Divide or war or whatever, this is what they karmically came into this world to experience and transcend whatever karmic burdens that soul had. And so I know I'm getting really deep here, but essentially, not that I ignore it. I'm not just ignoring all of the stuff that's going on. There are some, there is some discernment that needs to be used. I'm taking like a little bit more precautions than I would ever have taken, but it's not like consuming my life. I'm not a doomsday prepper, but I am like, I've put in some thought into a few things with respect to finances, extra food, that kind of stuff, in the event that it ever did go that way. But I'm not spending like all of my life trying to sort this out and prepare for something, because if I did that, then what I would be doing is allowing fear to rule my life. And I don't want to do that. I want to have faith that if I continue to move up the scale of consciousness, if I continue to grow, if I continue to transcend, then my leveling up will level up the people that are all around me. And this is the power of moving up the scale of consciousness. This is what more and more people, I believe, are becoming aware of, that as we rise up, we pull everyone around us with us. And this is why I like the great avatars of our time, Jesus, Krishna, Buddha. These were single individuals that shaped our whole entire society. And like, this is the power of moving to like a really, really high state of consciousness. Like Jesus, Krishna, and Buddha all calibrate on the scale of consciousness at the highest in the physical form, which is 1,000 on the scale of consciousness from 0 to 1,000. The American population, I think, calibrates around like 201 comparatively, as the last kind of calibration that Hawkins was doing. And so when we're in these low states of consciousness, we're susceptible. We're susceptible to programs. We're susceptible to, buying into whatever we're kind of being told. And so as we begin to wake up, we start saying, oh my God, like, look at all the things I bought into. And then we start asking, what else have I bought into? And then you start looking at all the programs that you took on unconsciously as a kid from your mom and the people around you and your teachers. And so all of this is unprogramming. And actually my mentor created a movie called Voyage to Betterment, and it was called the Unprogram, and that's essentially what we need to do. We need to unprogram from everything, and when we do that, we can look at every single one of these individual things that are happening in the world, and we can just see right through all of the BS. It's like, the war in Ukraine, for example. It's like there's so much more going on, but if you just look at the Western, mainstream media, and all they're basically pushing is that Putin is this evil person that wants to take over the land and, wants to expand Russia. And it's like, of course, that's not what it's about. Putin's publicly said that he has no intention of taking over Ukraine, right? And he's like, it was so much more that was going on there. And so when you see all of that, you're just like, okay, like, all of this evil will not prevail. The truth will eventually come out. And that's the other thing that's happening in this great wake up. It's like, it's almost impossible for people to lie anymore, right? Which is amazing, because one of my core teachings is to live a life of integrity, is to try and be as integrous as possible at all times. Don't tell any lies. Don't do anything shady. Don't give the nod of approval. And now with the way that media is going, the way that, everyone's life is kind of out there, it's like there's going to come a point where you just won't be able to lie anymore, because the truth will come through always. And so technology, AI, and everything is essentially, even though it's all messed up with left-wing biases and all this stuff, but is essentially moving us to this point where you will have no other choice but to live a life of integrity. And you're already seeing that, like in big corporations and stuff. Like back in the day, corporations would just try and take advantage of employees. Then the unions came in, right? The pendulum swung too far the other way, and the unions were taking advantage of the employers. But now there's like this great mix where the employer understands that he has to take care, or he or she has to take care of his employees, because if they don't, they're going to go find a job somewhere else, right? We're living in this era where you can do whatever it is that you want to do. And so you want to align yourself with people that you believe in and a vision that you believe in, so that, so that alignment creates this coherence. And in that coherence, it's like a lot of amazing things happen. And if you don't align with that integrity, it's like it's just going to come out, right? And so that's what we're seeing, and you're just not allowed. You're not allowed the space anymore to be able to tell a lie. Actually, there's a funny story about that. I remember there used to be this song out there that it sounded like it said my name in it, and I always used to lie to people and say, "Oh yeah, I met this guy, and he put my name in his song." But that was before like Google, right? So I was able to tell that lie all the time because people could listen to it over and over again, and it sounded like they were saying my name. But now it's like, if I said that lie to somebody, they could just pull out their phone and Google the lyrics of the song, and my lie would be like expelled in a matter of seconds. This is what I'm talking about, that technology is moving us to higher states of consciousness, believe it or not. And so this is why I believe that no matter what is going on in the world, and while there is all of this uncertainty and all of these terrible things happening, and the World Economic Forum's coming to get us, and they're going to try and push vaccines on us and take away our freedoms, I just don't think it's going to work. And because of that, I'm not going to consume my life of it. What I am going to do is I am going to dedicate my life to moving to higher states of consciousness, so that just by becoming a higher state of consciousness, I will be responsible for helping wake other people up. And the more people that wake up, the more we align with these high states of consciousness, like love and compassion, the more we get through all of this positionality that exists in the world, left, right, and good versus evil. The more that all goes to the wayside, and we just align with essentially being a good person. And when we do that, all of the evil just loses. So that's why I haven't, left Canada yet, because it's very easy to look at Canada as like a fallen country. It's why I haven't, done a ton of doomsday prepping. That's why I haven't sold everything and, bought a van and moved into some remote, village. It's not why I'm not like, getting my primitive skills, like making sure my primitive skills are in check. And yeah, maybe a little bit. Maybe I'm like, maybe I should have like a water filter in my house or something along those lines, and maybe a little extra food in the event that there's, some solar flare. And who knows how far the evil will stretch. You're kind of seeing like what's happening with Donald Trump right now. Like, it's like they're trying to basically remove democracy. They're using the court systems to try and keep him off of the ballot. And it's just like, the more they do it, which is kind of like my point of this whole podcast, the more they do it, the more power he gains. If he gets removed off a ballot in one state, he'll just win even more, right? And so it's like, this is what I see happening. Will it create a civil war in America? I would like to think not, but even if it does, we'll be okay. And I guess that's the philosophy of this entire podcast, is that you just have to keep moving forward and have this blind faith that no matter what happens, we're going to be okay, right? Even in our death, we'll be okay. Now, that's obviously not ideal, but that's the kind of faith that you have to have, that good will prevail. And if you do that, then you just continue to focus inward. You continue to try and move up the scale of consciousness on your own. And by doing that, that is the best thing that you can possibly do for humanity. For the kids were born into this time for a reason. We all, if you want to get really deep, we all make soul agreements to come back to earth, to come to earth, to come into this plane of existence, to clear something as a soul that we are unable to clear in a spiritual realm. And so every single one of our kids made an agreement to come at this exact moment in time, so that they could face or deal with whatever it is that they have to deal with. And so I know that's getting a little deep, but that's ultimately what it all comes down to, that we're all going to be fine, believe it or not, whether Donald Trump wins or not. Anyways, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that, hear your positivity, hear your negativity, hear your fears. It'll all be great insights for some further discussions on this topic of the world coming to an end. Thanks for taking the time to listen, and tune in next week.